All right, my friends, EB back here with Barriers and Boundaries, Resilience, Leadership. And I'm excited for my guest today, Rob Gallaher, author of Profit Sharing, leading a lot of different businesses over the years. And I just really want to give him on the show an opportunity to talk about this book and talk about what he's up to lately. I think you're going to get a lot out of this as I did reading through this book. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Here on Barriers and Boundaries, I like to talk about healthy employees creating healthy organizations. Sometimes that's personal resilience, sometimes that's organizational resilience, and there's many, many different approaches to do that. And reading your book, I'm like, well, this is a great combination of the two. You're taking care of employees. It helps them personally, maybe financially with their own financial resilience, but then also being able to get into your own organizational resilience aspects. And man, I'm just excited for you to be here. And I'd love to hear more about that story. But before we get into that, I want to really just, afford you the opportunity to talk about how did you get to a point to where I need to write this book? Like this is good stuff, and I really want to share this with everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. The story starts, my business journey starts like a lot of others. I lost my job during the 2008-09 housing crash. I was a construction superintendent, and all that work dried up in a heartbeat, felt like. And so I started doing jobs to make ends meet. My wife was pregnant with our second child. During all that financial turmoil, I was one of the guys that lost his house. And I found myself living the American dream to renting a home, living paycheck to paycheck, dealing with credit card debt, bad financial decisions that I made as a young man. And so I started this business. We started construction and we started doing work for the apartment communities. And I was very successful. I was working really hard. My wife came from an entrepreneurial family. Her father has a few businesses. So she was very good at helping me getting things set up and with the accounting and AR and payroll and how I had a good partner in the early days with her helping get going. 3 years in, I found myself with 30 employees making money, but working 60 to 80 hours a week. One of the companies I started was a 24-hour plumbing company. And that was a big bite that I wasn't ready to chew yet at that point in my life. And so I thought to myself, you look around and you see these business owners, some of my uncles, some people I knew, some of the people that I was doing work with, these guys were 60, 65 years old, still working 60 hours a week, hardly knew their kids. Maybe marriage was on their second or third marriage or holding on by a thread, just a lifestyle that I thought there's got to be a better way to this whole story. And so I started reading books and I started listening to business podcasts and I started consuming anything I could that had to do with running a business. I also was talking to other business owners that were in the boat that I didn't want to be in and just asking them and picking their brain of why they think they're in this spot. And I wasn't getting a lot of information. I was learning about business operations and having core values and KRAs and all these, business ops stuff. So I started implementing that. And then I ran across a book by Dave Ramsey called Entree Leadership. And in that book, he mentions this idea of profit sharing. And that concept, that theory fascinated me, as I think most do. It's a intriguing idea that people are like, that's always sounds interesting. So I started looking for profit sharing books and information, and there was not a lot out there. There was a lot of people talking about it. There was a lot of people mentioning it, talking about the theory and the idea and how great it is. But there was no how-to manuals. Nobody was selling a course or could help me set it up in my business. So I decided that I was going to have to figure it out on my own. And I started, and I came up with with a system that I thought, best of my knowledge and what I could find out, would work really well. And in 2015, I cut my first profit sharing check to 7 of my team members, and it was a disaster. Actually, long story short, I had a guy quit because I wasn't clear about it. I didn't communicate about it. It created more confusion than it did good. And so I thought, man, that was a disaster, but I'm not going to give up on this idea. And I tried it again, and I made changes, and I tried it again. And then in 18, we found something that really started clicking, where I was the owner and I started seeing ROI on this profit sharing plan, and all the lessons that I've learned since then, I started talking to other business owners like, hey, I do this profit sharing. You should do this in your business. I'm home at 4:30 every day. I show up and my team members are already making really good decisions and we're making more money. My team is more aggressive about getting these sales. They're running jobs tighter. They are working together better. All these positive things are happening, which creates a lot of attention. And people started asking me, how was I doing this? So I start telling them about profit sharing and I've learned. Anyway, fast forward to 2022, he says, somebody pays me to teach them how to do it. And that kind of shocked me because I was just telling everybody, I was sharing, I was passing along what I learned. If it helped me, maybe it'll help you. A lot of guys poured into me, and just reading someone's book, I think you can get immense value as a business owner. So a light bulb went off, and it wasn't even my idea. One of my leaders in my company was like, I think we could teach others for this, and it could be another source of revenue for us. I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. So I went to some classes. I did some research on how this would all look and work. And someone suggested that I write a book about it. It was a really cheap, easy way to get it out there for people to get the information they need to do it. And so that's what happened. And that's why the book was written. And I feel like this obligation to give back to the business community that I have learned and gained so much from.
It's such a good approach. And I love the mindset behind just wanting to get that information out there. I can imagine you were met with some resistance.
The first question they usually have is I get an eye roll, and then they say, well, how much is this going to cost me? You know, business owners, we're all kind of typical. We all think about the cost, worry about the cost, and that's usually where our mind goes first. You know, when you hire somebody, what's that cost? Buy a piece of equipment, what's that going to cost? How much are we going to make on that equipment? And so that's usually one of the first questions. And my answer to that is, well, when I implemented it the correct way, when I figured it out, I made way more money. And so I think about how much money it cost me not doing it in the years previous. And that's the number that if I was staying at, if I couldn't sleep at night, that's probably the number that's keeping me up. Just the cost of lack of knowledge.
I was reading through this and I was thinking, if a business is going to entertain profit sharing, that seems like the perfect example or case study to use a SWOT analysis. Right? You look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats because you got internal and external aspects of how much is this going to cost me. You have these rules throughout the book. Talk about your DMs, your decision makers. But rule number 4 on clarity. Can you talk to me just like the importance of clarity in that sense?
Just to tell you another story about why this is so important. When I first decided to do profit sharing, I sat down with a couple of leaders and we drew up a plan. And then I walked into a company meeting where all my leadership was, estimator, project managers. And we had our regular meeting. I think it was probably a production meeting where we go through every job. At the end of that meeting, this is how it went. I said, hey, I'm doing a profit sharing plan that I've come up with. So if you work harder, you'll make more money. And then that was it. I probably walked out, which is very confusing. No one knows how it works. I didn't explain what we're going to do together to make it happen, how all this works. And that was a huge mistake. So the clarity part of it is you explain the threshold to them. You explain to them, some people have never seen a P&L statement in their life. They don't understand what overhead is and that the rent and the electrical and the bookkeeper, that's overhead costs. And that's all these things that it takes to run a business. And so some team members don't think like business owners do. And it's not because they're bad team members. They just never had the opportunity to learn. And so that's part of clarity. And then also, I think when you speak to your team and you launch a profit sharing program, you need to talk about it in terms of we. And what are we going to do to make this happen? I am just as motivated to cut profit sharing checks as you are motivated to receive them. So we're on the same team, and let's have a meeting. Let's talk about strategies and things we can do better, things that we're doing good that we can do more of to really get, squeeze every drop out of the lemon.
And in that, going into that rule 5 with the coaching and stuff as well, the 2 words that I picked up on were consistency and achievable. How did that come up for you? These are the things that we need clarity on.
Yeah. One of the mistakes that business owners make that I also made too is they make it too hard to obtain. And so you come up with a profit sharing plan. Let's say you do everything right. You lead about it. You're clear about it. It's a good plan. And then you don't, but it's too hard to achieve. Like there's business owners walking around that read my book that actually think that they're going to double their profits in 3 months, which I have doubled my profits. Maybe not 3 months, maybe it was 12 months, but it is possible. But then they set the threshold so high that the team members never make it. They never get paid a profit sharing check. So you lose that connection of unifying the owner's goals and the team members' goals. And they completely missed the boat on that. So that's why it's important to have clarity on this. That's why it's important to make this an obtainable goal and I recommend business owners setting a threshold at where the profit sharing plan pays for itself the first month. And then once you hit that 2-3 months in a row, you'll see the revenue go up. You'll see the costs go down, the net profit start to go up. I've had one company that we did some testing on with profit sharing on. We made the changes and I saw a 100% increase in net profit in months. And it was just incredible to where we redo the profit sharing plan to pay out more profit to them and keep feeding this machine of, hey, you win, I win, you win. And it's a beautiful thing.
In talking with your employees, you're getting started. You've got some profit sharing models implemented. There was an aspect of this could potentially demoralize an employee. Can you kind of explain more on, you felt like you've been clear, you felt like the goals are achievable, attainable, but someone comes back and they just don't seem very motivated. How are you engaging with someone who maybe just doesn't get it or isn't really on board with it? What's a manager or leader to do?
I think there's a lot of things you can do here. Consistently communicating. Sometimes, I don't know who said this. Someone said a long time ago that if you don't say something 21 times, they didn't hear it one time. And that's an old leadership tactic. I think it's an old parenting tactic too with our kids. You have to repeat. You have to repeat and remind them and remind them. It's the same thing when you lead a team of people. There are people that are less motivated by money, but we all go to work to make money. And I like to approach it from the standpoint of, look, you're here because we value you and you provide value to the marketplace. You had to get out of bed this morning. You had to shower. You had to get dressed. You had to drive here. Any job that you have, you're going to have to do those things. What about if we changed our tune of having to be here to striving to win, right? And then you create a teamwork around it. And I've also noticed too that when I have a team member or been put in those situations that I rely on their coworkers of their team to help bring that person up to speed. So if we have a team of 5 people, let's say in the plumbing estimating department, for example, and one of them just doesn't seem to be clicking, I'll lean on the other 4 and be like, hey, how can we help this guy out? How can we get him to think like you guys are thinking? Take him out for a beer, take him out for lunch and try to get him thinking and create some team mindset. Even if he's not motivated that way, but if he knows you guys are, he can get on page because it's good for the team.
There's a lot of intrinsic motivations, extrinsic. Sometimes you got to tap into that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I talk to my teams about are their goals. What are you personally working for? What do you want in life? Sometimes it's buy a house. I hear that a lot. Sometimes I want to get married, depending on what phase they are in life. Well, how can an extra, $1,000 a month help you towards that goal? And I think a lot of time business owners make the mistake of making it about the company's goals or their financial goals. And there's always this mysterious drive to more profit. What about their goals? If you can link those two together, that's magic.
And being able to do that, there was like a line you put in the book towards the end, I believe, but it was helping your team think like an owner. And I just thought that was brilliant. And, just the ability to kind of capture how are they processing things? How are they working through tasks? But also from that perspective of maybe a perspective you would have or the owner should have. Can you share more about like how you've seen that kind of play out when you're trying to coach your team on doing that?
Yeah. Back in the early days when I was talking to other business owners and asking them how they did certain things, as I was 25 years old, I didn't know anything. I was learning as much as I could. Those were the complaints that I got was my employees don't work like I do. They don't think like I do. They just don't care about anything. And it always kind of stuck with me. And you hear that attitude a lot. I think a lot of business owners are stuck in this. The ones that aren't learning and the ones that aren't trying, they're just fighting the world. They're fighting their team. And I always felt like it was, if I could bridge that gap, however you do that. But I've known that if I can get them to think, work and care as much as I do, as close as possible, then I would win more. And it's been 100% true. I think you do a lot of that by being a good leader. Your team only cares about you as much as they know you care about them. And you do that by being a good example. You do that by having a good culture and paying them well. And all those things are very important. And then I take profit sharing and it really, whatever cracks are left in all those good things, it just fills them up and really creates this. I hate the word to use magic or hack, but it really is magic and the cherry on top of really unifying your team.
Like a cheat code, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's all kinds of shortcuts, but however you want to think about it. For my business, for the others that I've taught this and that are using it, it's been a phenomenal success.
I appreciate how personal this is for you, including a lot of your own journey through the book, like putting pictures or going back to like 2012 to 2019, kind of following some of your own path. And I'm curious about one, what do you think you're most proud of coming through all that, but also like what's your encouragement to those who feel like they're just getting started with pursuing their own business plans and dreams and goals?
I think business owners, let's talk about the second question. When you first start out, money cannot be your motivation. Yes, when I started out, I needed money because I lost my job and I had a baby already, one on the way. So money was a factor, but that's what gets you out of bed every day. But what keeps you going back day after day, week after week, year after year? And what really drives me is having people on my team that I see their growth. And I was just this morning, it's funny you ask this question, because just this morning I was telling somebody who's been with me over 10 years and they have a 14-year-old daughter. And I was like, I remember when you had a car seat in the back of your car for little Sophie, to drive her around. And I remember another gentleman that started for me, he had a newborn 3 months before he started working for me. And now he's a 13-year-old kid. And these stories of their families growing up and being part of that story, but also seeing where their skill levels were in the marketplace to where they are now. And just in my own story, what I've read and learned, I encourage my team to read books. There's a bookshelf in my office and I'm constantly asking, what book you reading? Here, try this one. I just finished this one. It's really good. Or your teammate over there, they really like this one. And just watching people grow, that stuff fires me up. And I think they like it. No one's told me to stop giving books away yet. And I think people, when they have someone in their life that cares about them, that wants to see them succeed and win, it's a pretty good glue to keep a team together.
Oh, I love it. What's next for you? What's coming up in the works?
So this whole profit sharing book and course has started a lot of wheels rolling. We have fired up a company called ProfitX, and we're creating a course right now to teach business owners the nuts and bolts. It took me 4 years, a solid 4 years easily, to really have a profit sharing program that was working correctly. And I think about how much time and stress and money that cost to do, and how much money I did not make that I could have made if I had it figured out sooner. And I just want to share that with other business owners and give them nuts and bolts, black and white instructions, a guide, spreadsheets, the rules, where you make mistakes, definitely what not to do. I would love to share that with other business owners. And the dream in the sky that I have is that when I go to any business as a consumer, if I can walk into a restaurant or a mom and pop grocery store and I interact with multiple people in that business, if I can't tell who the owner is because they're all on a profit sharing plan and they're all so unified and they all do such a great job, that would be a beautiful America to interact with every day. And that's my vision. That's my goal.
I love that. And happy to champion that as well. My drive here is really make that connection for healthy employees, creating those healthy organizations. And it just goes hand in hand. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about, what does resilience mean to you? Having gone through all of your experiences, I'm sure you got punched in the face a time or two, metaphorically. But how would you define resilience?
Yeah, this is a great question. For me, there's a line that I think about every day, and it's, I only lose if I quit. And that's what resilience means to me. I know there's other definitions for the word, but I know that if I never give up, I never get into the loss column. And yeah, you have setbacks and you have failures. You have challenging events that you feel like are losses. But if you never give up, if you have a goal and you just work hard and work smart, you're going to win. The last thing I want to say for anyone, business owner, is listening to this, is that you need to have a relentless pursuit of self-education. You need to be reading. And if you can afford going to conferences and trade shows in your industry, there's speakers there, there's other business owners there, take them to lunch. For a $50 or $60 lunch, you get an hour with a business owner that's been doing it for 20 years. Invaluable stuff. Do these things, do these for yourself, do them for your family. You'll change your family tree. And it's incredible.
That's very, very encouraging. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's definitely a highlight right there. How can people get in touch with you? What do people need to know?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and we're on LinkedIn. The website for ProfitX is not up yet. The course will be done into July. That would be a huge way to connect. I want a community of business owners. The several that I've already helped set up profit sharing plans, I've already learned from them. I've already gotten feedback and other ideas. And a couple of them have been very good, very smart about things that they've added or have implemented in their own businesses that I have implemented too. So I think it would be incredible to have a bunch of business owners in a place sharing ideas and sharing stories and encouraging the ones that are on the fence about it maybe to try it or hear other success stories, because that's the true confidence, is the proof, right? I did it. This is what I got. You can do it too. If I can do it, anybody can do it. We hear that a lot. Yeah, connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and we'll be sharing progress stuff on there and what's going on. But I appreciate being here, EB. I know you're a fan of the word resilience, and it's a great word. And if the world had more of it, how much of a better place would it be?
And Rob, I appreciate you being here today, and looking forward to seeing what happens with ProfitX. I think it's going to be great.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. All right, my friends, that was Rob Gallaher, author of Profit Sharing and developer of ProfitX. Very much looking forward to that coming online in the next few months and just the value that is going to bring to you. Buy the book in the meantime. Go through the rules that he presents in the book. Do a SWOT analysis through the lens of the book. A lot of great material that's in there that you can glean from. A lot of wisdom from choices and decisions, and being able to grow yourself and just keep that attitude of what will it take to grow in this moment. I think you'll have a lot of valuable insights that will help you process what you're going through as well. But here at Barriers and Boundaries, we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep fighting the good fight for resilience. And until next time, EB out here.